Greetings and welcome to Illinois in Focus Weekend Edition, powered by the Center Square. I'm Greg Bishop, Illinois editor at Franklin News Foundation, publisher of the Center Square Newswire service. This week for Illinois in Focus, the Center Square reporter Jim Talamonte and I will discuss continued debate around public safety in Chicago, talk of the progressive income tax resurfacing, and how Illinois plays in some of your favorite Thanksgiving leftovers. All of that and more when we return for more Illinois in Focus, powered by the Center Square.
Some people would call him a loser. He ran for state office. He was beaten. He started a business. He failed. He ran for Congress. He lost. He was nominated for vice president. He lost again. But he knew only those who never tried are the real losers. And Abraham Lincoln was no loser. Persistence. Pass it on. From the Foundation for a Better Life at values.com.
Welcome back to Illinois in Focus. I'm Greg Bishop. As Illinoisans recover from the Thanksgiving holiday feasts, the debate about public safety in Chicago lingers. Just before offices closed for the long weekend, President Donald Trump pardoned some turkeys, but he took time during the holiday celebration at the White House to call Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker a, quote, fat slob. The Center Square's Jim Talamonte joins me to tell us what prompted that insult. Jim, in what context was the president lashing out at the governor?
Well, it was interesting. This started out as your kind of typical lighthearted Thanksgiving presidential turkey pardoning, with the president joking about the turkeys and they were gobbling a little bit, so he kind of made reference to them, and it seemed to be going along. And then as time went on, he talked about some of the accomplishments of his administration, as he frequently does when he's doing any type of speech or event. And then he got into talking about safety and how much safer Washington, D.C. is. And that just led him, and I'm not sure if this was all part of his prepared speech. I suspect at least part of it was, because he made a reference to a speechwriter at one point. But then he went into Chicago, and what has drawn his attention in the last couple of days are two separate incidents. One, which we've reported on substantially at the centersquare.com, would be the incident a week ago Monday when a woman was set on fire on the CTA Blue Line on a train. She was sitting on a train, and the suspect who was arrested in connection with this had, at first it was reported, 49 previous arrests and a number of convictions. Well, it turned out that number is over 70 previous arrests. And this got the attention, A, the horrific nature of the incident, and B, the number of arrests that this individual has had. Well, that's drawn the attention of media across the country, and it got to the President of the United States. And then a separate incident, which came just not long after the city of Chicago's tree lighting, a Christmas tree, or they call it holiday tree lighting ceremony in Millennium Park downtown, and the opening of the Christkindl German-style market right in the heart of the Loop in downtown Chicago. This was going on last Friday evening. There were two separate shootings. One of them just about an hour after, maybe even less, after the tree lighting ceremony ended, right in front of the Chicago Theater, that iconic marquee I think most people have seen on postcards or images of the city or in promotional announcements, that kind of thing. Right in front of there was a large group of teens gathering, hundreds, and shots rang out. And there were a number of teens injured, and then there was a separate shooting not far from there, a short time later, not far from this market, which I think would have been closed or almost closed by that hour. But and in that second shooting, there was a teen who was killed and another injured. And the investigation is ongoing. But these two events drew the attention of the president. He referred to both of them during this turkey pardoning, and then he just launched into Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, calling him incompetent and low IQ, and then referring to Governor Pritzker and uttering the insults you mentioned about him being a slob and referring to his weight. And then the president did, after saying that a few times, mention, well, I could lose a few pounds as well, but I won't be doing it on Thanksgiving. So, but it was very interesting here in the middle of what was generally, pre-holiday. We're all kind of thinking we're not really in news mode, but the president just launched into J.B. Pritzker with that tirade. And there was a part of it, in addition to the name calling, though, what was more substantive from the president was that he said, in Chicago, we can make it safe. He said, we can do it in 4 weeks, and in 8 to 10 weeks, it'll be totally safe, as he has referred to Washington, D.C. now being totally safe, free from crime or virtually free from crime. So that's what has gotten the president's attention, these incidents, and then the continuing crime numbers coming out of Chicago, and the president saying, well, we can fix this, we can do this, but it's Pritzker and Johnson who won't let us as a federal government step in and help.
And a lot of the issues also raising that criticism about the end of cash bail in the state of Illinois and the Safety Act, which was passed by the Democratic supermajority against the wishes of Republicans, and alongside a lot of concern from police groups as well. But even late last week, before the two shootings that happened after the holiday celebrations in Chicago last Friday, Governor Pritzker, he said he was open to tweaking the Safety Act and the end of cash bail. This followed that horrific incident on the CTA of the individual being lit on fire, and it coming out that suspect in that arson and that crime had dozens of prior arrests. But it kind of interesting that the governor said he's open to changes to the Safety Act, and public safety is not as bad as Trump wants it to be. But hours later, you had those two shootings in downtown Chicago. What all did the governor say when he said he's open to addressing public safety concerns?
Well, and it's very interesting. He said he's open to listening about it, and he said he's open to changes, he suggested, but he didn't say what kind of changes. He didn't say that the changes he would be open to would necessarily mean making it stricter in terms of giving prosecutors, state's attorneys, law enforcement, judges, more opportunity or more. There's more opportunity to be able to detain people. Now, in the case of this train incident, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office had recommended that this individual who was accused of setting the woman on fire, that he be detained, and the judge ignored that. Went against Cook County State's Attorney. This is Eileen O'Neill Burke, who replaced Kim Fox. And Burke's seen as being a little bit tougher on at least the violent criminals, and in fact, the state's attorney went out of her way to post a statement as well, saying that we recommended this individual be detained, and the judge did not listen. So, Pritzker hasn't said exactly what he'd be open to. Now, State House Republicans they were against the Safety Act to begin with, and specifically 3 members of the Illinois House who are in law enforcement, John Cabello, Dennis Tipsword, and Patrick Sheehan, they came out with a statement saying the Safety Act needs to be repealed. This needs to be changed. I also talked with the Illinois House candidate who was a former police chief in the Chicago suburb of Robbins, and David Shepard, who is running for Illinois House. He told me as well, this should never have been enacted. And the way to solve these kinds of situations is to not let them happen in the first place, to go back to allowing law enforcement, allowing state's attorneys, prosecutors, allowing judges to detain people who are dangerous. We just can't let people walk around when they've proven they're armed and dangerous. In fact, he said juveniles in the state of Illinois can walk around on bond with an attempted murder or even a murder charge. And there have been some additional incidents in terms of the shooting. There's been identification of the loop shooting, the post Christmas tree lighting shooting. There's been identification in terms of a video of a suspect, not necessarily a name connected with that. But it'll be interesting to see if that individual had any prior arrests or convictions, or was on some type of electronic monitoring. So if that's the case, you'll hear again repeated calls that this is the Safety Act once again, leading to these kind of violent situations, and in some cases, fatal situations.
And you also have to work in the immigration enforcement efforts in Chicago and the ongoing legal fights in the courts about the use of force. Can the Trump administration deploy the guard? Is Illinois' migrant sanctuary policies constitutional? These are all things that the courts are dealing with, but they're also having to deal with how to handle migrant youth who allegedly were involved in the murder of a homeless Chicago man. Jim, CWB Chicago reporting on that story.
Yeah, excellent and exclusive report by CWB Chicago. A 16-year-old and two 14-year-olds face charges with a fatal stabbing and robbery. One of the three only charged in connection with the robbery portion of that, but one of the individuals allegedly on video with a knife committing the stabbing. And so these three teens, now we don't know in terms of prior arrests if they have any or not. We don't know if there are gang connections at this point, but we do know that through CWB Chicago, these are three Venezuelan juveniles. We don't know when they arrived in the country or their immigration status, but certainly this, as more information likely comes out in the coming days, we'll find out more. But again, this may also connect with the state's migrant sanctuary policies, which President Trump, State House Republicans, and many others, and even a number of Chicago Democrats have said this. This has to stop. This soft on crime. So. It's all connected, or at least some of these cases appear to be, to state law and the Safety Act and the sanctuary policies, cashless bail, et cetera. And it's going to be interesting to see what some of the defenders and proponents of these policies have to say in the coming days, as they're likely going to face questions about these policies.
You talk about all of this seeming to be impacted by state law. Another state law allowing for Cook County to add more funding for immigrant legal services. Tell us about this, coming from the new budget announced by Cook County Board President Tony Preckwinkle.
Yeah, a $10.12 billion budget, and as usual, the headline from the county and from many of the Chicago media outlets, well, it's a budget that doesn't include any layoffs, it doesn't include any tax increases, although Cook County property owners have seen record increases. So it's not an increase that's in the budget per se, but through the way these taxes are assessed, a number of people, especially some in the lower income parts of the city of Chicago and somewhat in the south suburbs again, just got hammered with huge property tax increases. But Preckwinkle says, well, we haven't raised property taxes since the mid-1990s. But as part of her budget, there's an expansion of the Cook County Public Defender's Office to add 7 positions, 7 jobs added to the immigration division. And what these immigration public defenders do is they defend immigrants in deportation cases and other cases they could be facing. But the expansion was made possible by state law. And actually 2 state laws, one passed in 2021, House Bill 2790, created a path for the Cook County, and only Cook County, because it's the only one with over the required number of people, I believe it's 3 million, to represent immigrants involved in removal proceedings. This allowed the Cook County Public Defender's Office to handle these cases in Cook County. But this year, State Rep. Jennifer Gong-Gershowitz of Glenview, which is in Cook County, filed House Bill 2436, giving the Cook County Board the authority to allow its public defenders to provide representation outside of Cook County. So if an immigrant is facing deportation proceedings or is taken into custody by federal immigration enforcement, whether that be Customs and Border Protection or Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, and let's say they're moved out of state and detained in another state, the Cook County Public Defenders can continue to provide representation. So you're talking about Cook County tax dollars here being used outside of the state of Illinois to represent, in some cases at least, people who are undocumented in the United States and now are outside of even the sanctuary state of Illinois, but Cook County still representing them in their court cases. And, Greg, I did talk to some Cook County board candidates, and two of them, both running as Republicans in the 15th district of Cook County, said this should not be happening. When we should not be spending county taxpayer dollars on migrants. We should be sending them on citizens, and both questioned as well some of the operations of the county. I talked to another candidate, Amy Kessam, who works in law enforcement, and she's running for county commissioner in the Cook County's 9th district. And she said, well, the concern is to make sure that American citizens aren't paying taxes to carry the burden of this. At the same time, she did emphasize that everyone does have the right to legal representation and upholding the Constitution. So interesting angles there. But once again, Cook County, this is the state where the migrant sanctuary policies, helped get started. The county was the first to implement no cash bail under Tony Preckwinkle's leadership. The sanctuary policies, Preckwinkle's been a staunch defender of, and not only implementing those policies, but expanding them. So now Preckwinkle will face a challenger next year for Cook County Board President, one of the Chicago alderman, Brendan Riley, who's been a critic of the mayor and of Preckwinkle, and is seen as a more moderate Democrat and more of a little bit more of a fiscal watchdog. So that will be interesting to see how that plays out. But Cook County, in the meantime, is continuing a full speed ahead with using county taxpayer dollars for legal services for immigrants.
Again, just one of the stories you'll find at thecentersquare.com. This is Illinois in Focus Weekend Edition, powered by the Center Square. Another story, Jim, that people can find at thecentersquare.com deals with CDLs and commercial driver's license enforcement, with Illinois State Police year to date finding 550 truck drivers not understanding the English language. This is a story I worked on, Jim, and it's kind of fascinating. I want to lay out for people the genesis, and you get a tip from somebody saying, hey, you might want to look into CDL enforcement, might want to get a ride along with an enforcer with Illinois State Police. So I did the groundwork and put in an application for a ride along, asked the Illinois State Police for some data on English language proficiency exams for CDL drivers, and they denied my request for a ride-along, but they provided data, and the data itself is raising some alarm for some legislators, including State Representative Adam Niemerg, who himself has filed legislation to require that regular driver's license holders pass the English language proficiency exam. So I asked him about the data I received of around 25,000 or so enforcement interactions. About 220 since just this summer failed the English language proficiency exams, with about 1 out of every 5 drivers having a Illinois issued CDL that did not pass the English language proficiency. That in its own is causing Niemerg to say that there needs to be more oversight on this, and Illinois needs to get its house in order, just as the rest of the country needs to get their house in order when it comes to issuing commercial driver's licenses to people who don't understand the English language. So again, just wanted to get that story out in front of people. You can read that at thecentersquare.com. Jim, this is obviously a holiday weekend. We're recording this Wednesday before Thanksgiving, but you've got Black Friday. A lot of shopping's going to be had, people trying to work off those calories from the Thanksgiving meal. But then you've got Small Business Saturday, big event across the country, nationwide. People encouraged to go and shop at local small businesses, and they got a bit of a reprieve from the federal government, Jim, but small businesses in Illinois, they still face some headwinds.
No question. And I talked with Noah Finley of the National Federation of Independent Business. This is the certainly one of the leading small business and independent business advocates nationwide, and in particular in Illinois. And Noah Finley said Small Business Saturday is very important. He said small businesses are the drivers of economic development. And, the Illinois Policy Institute found actually that in Illinois, 89% of the net new Illinois jobs created last year came from small businesses with fewer than 20 employees. That just tells you how, when you put all these small businesses together, they're accounting for a lot more new jobs than the big name corporations that are out there, and the big companies who are also huge parts of the Illinois economy, but small businesses altogether are creating a lot more jobs and really driving, as Noah Finley said, Main Street economies and local communities. And he said these small business owners invest in communities, they support charities and fundraisers, they hire locally. But although the small business tax deduction is extended permanently by the Big Beautiful Bill Act, passed by Congress, signed by President Trump, this is a 20% deduction for small businesses. And so it's millions of dollars of savings for businesses across the country. And Finley said this gives them some certainty so they know what they can plan for, how they can invest, and they can hire. If this deduction wasn't going to continue, well, that certainly would have raised uncertainty and might have kind of led people to hold on to their wallets a little bit before, seeing what's going to happen with taxation. Well, in Illinois, with projected future budget deficits coming from the governor's office, Finley said there's just talk of continual tax increases, new proposals in the General Assembly to drive increased red tape. I did ask Finley about some of the measures passed over the summer that were seen as business unfriendly. And Finley said, well, the effects of these haven't even really kicked in yet. We're talking about some of the liability issues with the lawsuit inferno legislation, workplace safety conditions, those kinds of things that add burdens for small businesses. And now there's talk, Greg, and you did a story on this, on a progressive tax that again could affect business owners and business people around the state, and could again, from what Finley says, add to that uncertainty and just cause not only costs but also increased bureaucratic requirements and red tape that in small businesses, they don't have big HR departments, they don't have legal advisors in house. It just adds a lot of difficulty for people trying to operate a small business. Some cases, a family business where, you're looking at whether they be in agriculture, especially in agriculture, or in, for example, the restaurant and the service industries, hotel, hospitality industries. People put in a lot of hours, and their family members put in a lot of hours, and so adding difficulty to their jobs, they just want to be able to do what they do. And so Finley said we really need to pursue more business-friendly policies here in Illinois, and other manufacturing advocates represent some larger companies have also echoed that, as Illinois lawmakers, again, looking ahead to, believe it or not, we'll be back in session in a couple of months, right? There are already tax proposals being floated out there that could force businesses in the land of Lincoln to take a hit.
We'll definitely be watching all of that, especially in an election year in 2026. There's going to be a lot of activity at the State House leading up to the budget for the next fiscal year. And then it's going to be a full sprint to the November general midterm election. We'll have all that covered at thecentersquare.com. Just a couple of minutes here. Just, holiday weekend, a lot of people eating turkey and pumpkin pie and all kinds of other delicious things, but there's lots of leftovers as well. Just take a moment to talk about, one of those leftovers that Illinois likely played a pretty significant role in making sure it got onto the table.
Yeah, we're number one in so many categories when it comes to high taxes, right, and high costs of things. But here's a good one. Here's a positive for Illinois. Illinois, far and away, leads the nation in pumpkin production. Illinois produced about 485 million pounds of pumpkin last year. That's about the equivalent of the next four leading states combined. I talked with Nathan Johanning from the University of Illinois Extension, and he said at least 80% of the pumpkin found in stores, and likely a lot more than that, comes from Illinois.
Well, we're both about to turn into pumpkins if we talk too much longer here for Illinois in Focus Weekend Edition. Thank you so much, Jim. To everybody out there, happy holidays. We are in it, and you can read up more at thecentersquare.com.